fine Tuesday in New York City. This rainy, disgusting day. And maybe the day we all realize the reality that Saquon Barkley will never play another game for the New York Football Giants. They have decided not to tag him. He is a free agent. He will get to negotiate with every team in the NFL. And is it over for Saquon?
Yes, as we watch the Sandbar series.
What the hell is this Sandbar series?
Port St. Lucie, the Mets hosting the Yankees.
That's what you're calling it?
I don't know what else to call it.
Sandbar series?
It's kind of close to Subway, but not really. It starts with an S, I guess. Look, Saquon Barkley, we've had this conversation multiple times already this offseason about what his value is to the Giants or what he views his value is to the Giants, and then ultimately what it means for his legacy. But something that Sean told us yesterday, and we brought it on air briefly, but it's worth revisiting here, now makes me feel like Saquon Barkley has no chance of re-signing with the Giants.
No chance?
No chance. And here's why.
Oh, boy.
So we know what his number was last year. It's just over $10 million. If he signs the franchise tag again for the second year, it's 120% of last year's salary franchise tag. So it's like $12.2 million, whatever it is, whatever the number is. But Sean told us yesterday that the going rate for all of these free agents, because there's a lot of them in the running back world. Derrick Henry is one, Josh Jacobs, the kid from Dallas as well. I'm forgetting his name.
Austin Eckler, Tony Pollard,
right?
DeAndre Swift. It's a loaded group.
It's like $8 to $10 million. So that's a pay cut for Saquon Barkley. And so if you're the Giants, the only thing you're going to pay Saquon Barkley is $8 to $10 million, and that's going to be viewed as disrespectful. But if some other team, either Baltimore, who's desperately in need of a running back after the injuries that they've had, and I think Gus Edwards is also on his way out there, they need playmakers. Saquon's a playmaker. The Houston Texans surprised everybody last year. Their starting running back, Devin Singletary, for most of last year, he's also a free agent. I get the feeling that someone's going to value Saquon Barkley more than what the Giants value him at now under $10 million, which was less than they paid him last year on the franchise tag.
Yes, I happen to really, really agree with you. And that is why maybe I was a lone voice in this. I thought the Giants should have tagged him today. I think that's what they should have done.
Well, it would have been, interestingly, as crazy as it sounds, right by him.
It would have been.
It's paying him more than he's going to get on the free market.
Yeah, I don't think he still would have been happy about it because I think he wants a long-term deal. But I think for two reasons, they should have done it. Now, they've obviously decided not to. The deadline is today at 4 o'clock. They may have decided not to because they're going to use one of their tags on Xavier McKinney. We have not heard one way or the other if they are going to do that. Now, if they decide to place the transition tag on Xavier McKinney, and that was their strategy and part of why they didn't tag Saquon, it's slightly different. But overall, the New York Giants last October made a decision. They made a decision that you and I argued about, that Sean and you argued about. And that was a decision to not even listen on conversations about trading Saquon Barkley. They would not take phone calls from any other general manager in regards to trading him. And we had a very heated conversation. And you brought up the point of, well, he means a lot to the locker room. What would it mean for season ticket holders? A lot of fair points, but to me, fair points that were superseded by the fact you got to do what's best for the organization. And if you don't have a long-term plan for Saquon Barkley being here, then you at least need to listen on offers. If you're telling me with a salary cap that's bloated, with a franchise tag that to me is reasonable, it's a reasonable number when you compare it to other positions. You could have simply tagged him and said, we'll still work on a long-term deal. We'll still maybe make and find common ground. But, hey, in the meantime, we know we have Saquon back. As opposed to literally letting him go and getting nothing but a compensatory pick. That, to me, never made sense. Now, I thought once they didn't trade him, maybe they really want to keep him.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong.
He's valuable.
Well, I was wrong before I was wrong because the Giants clearly, by not tagging him, which I again think they should have done, they are letting him go. He's gone. And I completely agree on why. You just laid it out. There's going to be a team. In my opinion, it's the Houston Texans. But you can bring up the Baltimore Ravens or the Dallas Cowboys or the Vegas Raiders if they lose Josh Jacobs or the Philadelphia Eagles. And obviously, we're going to have strong opinions about where we would not want him to go. But there's going to be a team. I can promise you this. that's going to look at Saquon Barkley. They're going to compare him to Austin Eckler. They're going to compare him to DeAndre Swift. They're even going to compare him to Derrick Henry. And they're going to say, you know what? Based on age and even that still potential we haven't fully seen and the track record and his ability to catch the ball out of the backfield, him. Yep. We want him. And that means he's gone.
Yeah.
And what would annoy me and is annoying me is that the Giants had a chance 8 months ago to say, you know what? We don't value him. We are going to let him test the free agent waters, which means we're going to lose him. Why not think about trading him?
Yeah.
Think about trading him. Doesn't mean you definitely trade him.
I think
they didn't even think about it, T.
That conversation, Evan, comes down to what damage will trading Saquon during the season last year have on our locker room, right? Because think about the reaction that we heard from Kayvon Thibodeau this current offseason when he was talking about Daniel Jones relative to Saquon Barkley. He wasn't saying he's anti-Daniel Jones, said he actually supports and backs Daniel Jones, but Saquon should have gotten paid first. Mm-hmm. Now imagine if during the middle of the season they trade Saquon Barkley. Mm-hmm. It's giving up. It's saying your best player is not relevant or not important to the future of the organization in real time, and that creates not like a dissension in the locker room, but it's a head scratcher in the locker room, and it becomes a non-cohesive work environment, if that makes sense. Now, does that matter ultimately? The way that they finished 6-11? No, it doesn't really matter. But I think in trying to keep the place together, you made a bad business decision in not trading him.
So you agree it was a bad business decision?
Well, if you're not going to – in free agency, someone's going to value him more than the Giants do. That's fact.
And if that's fact, that means he's gone.
That's right. And so – we know that unless he decides to say, you know what, I'm going to stay for a lesser deal to play with the New York Giants. Right. I'm going to give me a 4-year deal for $40 million. And, probably the back end of that is fungible, but I'm going to be making under $10 million. But I want to be a Giant. I want to be a Giant for life. I want to break Tiki's records. I want to help this team try to compete and win a championship. And I'm going to do it for the Gipper type of thing. That's the only way he's staying here because someone else is going to value him more. And if the Giants weren't calculating that in real time last season at the trade deadline, then they made a mistake because he's going to end up being gone. Because I don't think he's going to stand. I don't think he's going to do what I just said.
I agree with you. And look, there's always that possibility. There's always that possibility that Saquon Barkley says, you know what? I love it here. I love being a New York Giant, and I want to be a New York Giant. And after I get this massive offer from the Houston Texans, I take it back to the Giants. Mm-hmm. They say, sorry, we can't match that.
Yep.
But Saquon then says, you know what? Don't even have to match it. Just get it to this, and I'm willing to come back. And I do think that's
Aaron Judge.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Aaron Judge, hopefully Pete Alonso in a few months. Like, that's possible, though I don't think it's likely. But the miscalculation from the New York Giants to not listen on trade offers, then get surprising news that the cap is higher than they thought. Like, let's factor that in. The Giants, just like every other team in the NFL, was received great news. Mm-hmm. News they didn't expect.
Nope.
A salary cap that's going to be higher than they thought, which allowed tagging him.
By a lot.
By a lot. Which allowed tagging him to make sense financially. To say, we're going to keep him. Hopefully we work out a long-term deal. Worst case scenario, fine, we got him on another make-good deal. Well, to not tag him today is the second mistake that Joe Shea made. The first one may have been not to trade him, but if you're not going to tag him, and they could have tagged him, and they should have tagged him, that's the second mistake.
I think I'm correct on this. Sean, check this as I'm saying this. I think once you tag a player, that tag number, so in this case, $12.2 million, becomes tied up until you sign a long-term extension, right? So until you sign whatever the deal is, it makes his cap number, say, like $3 million. That $12 million is not usable.
Yeah, it's unavailable to you on your cap
Exactly.
Numbers.
So it's unavailable cap space. And so the reason that the Giants probably decided not to tag Saquon or anybody yet to this point is because if you do that and you don't think you're going to get a long-term deal, you have so much cap space tied up in one player until you get that deal done. And I think knowing how the negotiation went last year, it's going to take a long time for that deal to
But
get done.
They're going to lose him now.
I understand that.
You agree they're going to lose
But they
him.
have so many holes to fill in free agency. We've talked about this ad nauseum with the O-line and the depth in the secondary and the linebackers and whatever else. They have to have money. They have to have as much money free as possible to do those type of deals to get the best players possible. And tagging Saquon ties up like $12 million.
It does, but you know what else it does? It creates a new hole. You talk about all the holes the New York Giants have. I want Giant fans to do this little quick exercise. I want you to close your eyes, and you did see it for a little bit of time, and imagine this offense without Saquon Barkley.
Yeah.
You've seen it. Now imagine it for a full season. Dude, it's not good. Think of Daniel Jones without Saquon Barkley. Close your eyes. You've seen it. It's not good. Whether it's Daniel Jones or a young quarterback they draft, we'll see more on that later. They've hurt their offense.
Yeah.
And your answer, and I'm not mad at you, but you're giving the answer, is, I don't want to tie up $12 million in cap space.
But I'm just telling you, that's the business reason not to do it, right?
I don't like that answer out of Evan either. Like
out of me?
Yeah, no kidding. Their offense is better with Saquon Barkley. All right, I admit I was wrong the beginning of last year, but the truth is, Evan, the same truth we're all seeing. He's entering year 7. He's oft injured. As much as I do want him back, and I think he's important. At some point, though, the Giants' offense and the Giants in general in building their roster are going to have to become less reliant on Saquon Barkley. And if this forces them to do so, maybe a bigger play at wide receiver.
Hold on. You're a diehard Giant fan who I remember last week when we were talking about this in relation to the cap number going up. You, I think, said on this radio show,
Yep.
I will be pissed if Saquon Barkley is not a New York Giant.
I am pissed, and I still am not believing that he's not going to be a New York Giant, but what I won't stand for is the simple reason for keeping Saquon being, well, that's their guy on offense.
That's not a simple reason. It's one of the many reasons.
But here's the thing. Whether they kept Saquon or not, this offseason is an even bigger failure if they entered August without, in their minds, a reasonably big expectation at number 1 wide receiver that becomes the guy, not Saquon Barkley, and whether that was through draft or wide receiver. Worst case, even if they kept Saquon, this team couldn't break camp with Saquon, knowing Saquon is their offense.
I get that, but answer this question. We know what the cap is, which is very high. Yeah. We know what the Saquon tag would have been, which was around $12.2 million, $12.3 million. You know that. You know that him going to free agency increases the chances that one team, and it could very well be the Philadelphia Eagles, one team will probably outbid the New York Giants. Knowing all of that, and I think we all pretty much agree with that, you wouldn't tag him?
I would have tagged him knowing that the
$12
million.
Then we agree.
No, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm disagreeing with your reasoning for taking him being, the offense sucks without him.
There's a
because
lot
with
of
or
reasons,
without him,
dude.
the offense should improve.
I agree with it. There's a lot of reasons why, to me, they should have tagged him today. One of the reasons being the cap is higher. Another reason being you decided last trade deadline, if you're Joe Shane, and forget about trading Saquon Barkley, entertaining the idea of trading Saquon Barkley.
Yeah. Just to see what someone would give you.
Like, I'll give you a great example, and this is personal to me, because you look at my beard today, it is pink, basically. It's fuchsia red. More on that later. When the Mets were shopping Pete Alonso, and ultimately they did not trade him, but they shopped him. They listened on offers.
Yep.
I didn't complain about that. And I'm as big of a Pete Alonso fan as there is. There's nothing wrong with listening. There's nothing wrong with listening. In fact, you're closed-minded if you don't listen. I'd listen on anybody. And then ultimately, you make a decision. The Mets made a decision at the trade deadline. We listened on Pete. We didn't trade him. Good. I'd have been pissed off if they did. The Giants made a decision with Saquon Barkley to not even listen on trade offers. If you're going to treat a player in that kind of caliber of we're not listening on trade offers, and I respect all the reasons you gave. I understand what it would have done for the locker room. Then that means you really want the guy back, or at least you should really want the guy back. To then not tag him a few months later doesn't make any sense. Well, it's a contradiction.
Yeah, it is a contradiction, but I don't want to say, like, it's almost a convenient one, right? It's the Giants feel a certain way, this new regime with the Giants feel a certain way about Saquon. And maybe it's just every running back. Now, what does that mean? It means, yes, he's valuable. Yes, he is our game breaker. We haven't had a lot of them. Jalen Hyatt looks like he may be evolving into that player.
I like Wandell.
Giants. Wandell Robinson is as well. I don't know what his game-breaking ability. When I say game-breaking, I mean you can go 60 yards for a touchdown. There's 2 guys on the team right now that can do that. Saquon Barkley, or not even on the team right now, last year that could do that. Jalen Hyatt, and more importantly, Saquon Barkley. They don't have that player right now. And so you value Saquon because he brings that. But you also don't want to pay him because nobody wants to pay running backs anymore. Hence what Sean told us yesterday, that the running backs in the free agency right now are going to go for less than $10 million likely. And so it's just it's mind-numbing to try to figure out the dichotomy, like what you should be thinking then versus what you're thinking now, what Saquon's position was then versus what Saquon's position is now. I think he's going to test the open market. And if someone sees real value in him and sees that game-breaking ability, he's going to get a 12 to 13, maybe $14 million a year contract on paper. And what it actually is doesn't matter. On paper, he's not getting that from the New York Giants because they don't have to give him that, and they have so many holes to fill.
So they're going to be willing to let him walk away?
It seems like it. Because if you don't tag him, you're willing to let him walk away.
So they don't want him back?
I think they don't.
They don't want him back. So this was
I don't
all.
think they do.
Okay, so then now I'm getting this straight now. So what the Giants have done over the last year is appease the guy in the locker room by saying we're not trading Saquon Barkley in the middle of the year.
Right.
We're going to appease the crowd and all the kids who have Saquon jerseys. We're going to appease you. We're going to make you happy. We're going to say all the right things. And then we're going to let another team outbid us so we can say, hey, guys, we tried. But look, someone else paid more. We're trying to be smart. We can't be stupid. We're going to just let him go. And the whole time they kind of knew they weren't bringing him back. By the way, that scares the crap out of me because it sounds very familiar with another scenario. But is that really what you think's going on here?
Well, I don't know how else to explain it. Right? So if you the challenge with tagging him is that once you tag him, it becomes the starting point. And unlike every other tagged running back right now, whose cap number is less than Saquon's because he had that little add-on bonus to his thing, it makes his tag number higher than everybody else's. And so when you tag somebody, that's the starting point of the negotiation. It's not like, all right, we're going to do your contract based off the tag number. It's like, all right, let's do 15, 20, 30% on the tag number. That's what we'll start talking. And then we'll figure it out from there. So if they would have tagged him, it further increases the AAV that they're going to have to pay him.
Okay.
By not tagging him, it goes down to, as Sean told us, the market value for free agent running backs, which is less than $10 million.
Not necessarily, because here's why. I always look at, okay, let's look at the worst case scenarios and decide which of the worst case scenarios you'd rather have. I did this as an exercise with Pete Alonso a few weeks ago when we talked about the risk of extending him now versus the risk of free agency. And I ultimately decided, based on those risks, I'd rather the risk of today and paying him. Let's play this game with Saquon Barkley. You franchise tag him.
Yep.
What's the worst thing that can happen? The worst thing that can happen is you just mentioned the negotiating. Yeah. It doesn't go anywhere. He's got to play on the tag again.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario.
But again, you're ladling the cap.
Correct.
$12+ million.
100%.
For one player.
Not ideal.
It's absolutely not ideal, especially when you have 20-something free agents you got to sign.
Totally get it. That's the worst case scenario. Yes. So pot A, Saquon Barkley is playing on the tag in 2024 for the New York Giants. That's worst case number one.
That's A.
Now, let's go to B. You let him go to free agency. The Houston Texans blew him out of the water. The Giants have no interest in matching.
Mm-hmm. Now you lose Saquon.
Now you lose Saquon Barkley. He is now a Texan. You get the compensatory pick, which I think will be a third-round pick, something of that nature.
Not necessarily.
Why is that? Explain it.
Because it depends how many other free agents we sign. That's another misnomer here.
Good call.
This is not hey, you lose Saquon, so you get a third-round pick. The Giants are going to be active in free agency. It's a comp pick formula. Right. They may, in the end, end up with a third-round pick, but don't assume that based on what they do in free agency.
So we don't even know what pick you're getting back. Let's put that away. Worst-case scenario, he's gone. You lost him for nothing. Yeah. Those are the two worst-case scenarios. Which one do you select?
Well,
I have my answer.
The first one.
Honestly, the first one. So you select tagging him.
I would.
Then
I would.
They should have tagged him.
I know.
Because choice two's going to happen, bro.
Those are two bad scenarios. And so, unlike when, for instance, people will say, oh, when you retired, they were fine, right? But there was a group There were 4 dudes back there when I retired.
Yeah, they had to establish something.
Right? And Derek Ward, Ahmad had just come in. Reuben Drones was there. Like there was a stable. Who's the stable in the New York Giants running back?
They need to
right
get
now?
a stable.
I mean, Eric Gray is a rookie last year. Didn't really do much. Right? So who's the stable? Who's the bona fide starter out of that group? There isn't one. And so the losing Saquon creates a massive void that has to be filled. Now, some people will say, oh, it's easy to fill the running. You can go find a running back in any draft. I'm so sick of hearing that nonsense because, yes, you can put a number on his back, put his name back there. He ain't going to be a 60-yard on a given play kind of player. There's 5 of those guys in the NFL, and you have one of them, and now you're letting them walk. That's why there's problems here. This is what upsets me about the running back is easy to find. No, he's not. An average one is very easy to find, just like an average guard is easy to find, just like an average safety is easy to find. Go find me an elite one. You're not finding them just off the bargain basement shelf in some discount store. So that's what frustrates me about this running back conversation that everybody keeps wanting to have and the devalued nonsense that I hear over and over and over again. When you have a great one, you know it. And the Giants potentially have one or had one.
Yeah. By the way, last year, I think you saw more with the injuries. I don't buy that Saquon's a 60-yard guy anymore. Whatever that number is subtracted, fine. But I think the market plays into that, though, Tiki. When you left, the Giants also didn't have a free agent market like this. Are the Giants better off with, at half the price, Eckler, whatever Derrick Henry costs for
31 years old.
Okay.
Derrick Henry's got so much mileage.
But Tiki, I'm not talking about adding 4 years.
I know what you're talking about.
I'm saying for the next year or two, and then maybe use one of those 2 second-round picks and the Giants find there. Brees Hall,
Wait, so now you're
Chain.
saying you don't want Saquon? You're okay?
No. I'm not saying I'm okay.
Let me explain something about Sean. He's a very different kind of fan than me. I get angry and angrier when things happen. He tries to rationalize when things happen.
I want to make this very clear. I think Joe Shane mishandled this. If this is the route he was going to go, I'd be supportive of it, but I would have traded him. Now that he is putting him on the market, I believe there still is a path more than you two that Saquon can come back because of the flooded market. But if he doesn't, are the Giants better off on that $12 million a year for Saquon Barkley, or are they better off with Austin Eckler on this year for $7 million, spending one of their second or third round picks on a running back, and then taking that extra money and loading up on a big offensive lineman?
They just drafted one a year ago.
You just said create a stable. Create a stable. Good teams figure out the stable.
We'll come back and get to your calls. Is the end of Saquon Barkley? I think it is. Tiki thinks it is. And I think Joe Shane done effed up. 877-337-6666.